Hello everyone, and welcome back to RegalStamping.com. My name is Krista Thomas and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator. Today I'd like to show you how to make a beautiful background using a brayer like this and a spectrum pad. Stampin' Up now sells an uninked variety, uninked spectrum pad, and all you need are 5 reinkers in the colors of your choice to make your own custom pad. For the pad that I'm using today, the colors of reinkers that I used to ink my pad were Balmy Blue, Granny Apple Green, Mango Melody, Cajun Craze, and Coastal Cabana. If you're interested in getting one of these uninked pads, you can go to my store, kristathomas.stampinup.net, click on the Shop tab, and then just type Spectrum, just that one word Spectrum, into the search bar, and that will take you right to that pad where you could purchase one for yourself. And then you get to choose which colors of reinkers you'd like to make your pad with. So when you are brayering, you need glossy paper, at least for this technique. Glossy paper is a must. If you have photo paper, that will work as well. And you also need a red rubber, well, this isn't red, but a soft rubber brayer. This one is made by Speedball. And you want that soft rubber as opposed to the hard acrylic or the soft foam. For this technique, you really want the rubber. Now, my table here in my craft room is somewhat textured because it is covered with tiles, and there's a little bit of a texture to it. So I always put one of these fun foam pads underneath my placemat paper so that I don't have that texture transfer through to my project. It does kind of make a cool effect, but for today I don't want that texture showing through. So the card I'm going to share with you today is this one that uses Lily Pad Lake stamp set, and I used the coordinating framelits called Lakeside framelit dies, and specifically this blue background that you see I made using this framelit, and I just positioned it over a Pacific Point panel 3 different times. And then all those little twigs of paper come out, leaving that wonderful background. There is one other stamp set that I borrowed from for this particular card, and that was for the birds. Those are from High Tide. And I think out of this set, which I love, I use that bird stamp more than any of the others. See if you can see that. And in this particular case, I only used the 3 smallest birds up in the sky. So let me show you how to make this brayered background nice and smooth and ready for this card. I have my glossy paper and my spectrum pad, and I just made a little cheat sheet or swatch here of the colors that are on it. And on the back side, I just made a little label to clue me in as to the reinkers that I used. A spectrum pad has the option of having all 5 pads pulled apart, or you can slide them together. And you won't be able to put the lid back on unless you slide them back apart. That's a really genius way to keep those colors from bleeding into each other as you store them. There's a little bit of bleeding just from rolling the brayer across them, but I've had other pads that you cannot separate the colors, and they just end up a muddy mess. So let me show you how to ink this up. I'm going to scoot this back just a little bit. When I brayer with a spectrum pad, I like to keep the colors apart, and then you roll your brayer across, lift it up, and do it again and again and again. And when I do that, I'm getting ink all the way around the brayer, because if I did just this, I'm only inking a small section. So you cannot just roll it back and forth. You have to pick it up and walk it across. And by keeping the colors separated, I get just a little bit of space on my brayer between them, and that helps not bleed those colors together. It's not going to matter when I go to the brayering part on the paper. So let me ink it up really good. And then you work quickly, and you don't lift the brayer off the paper until you're finished, because as long as you keep that brayer moving, the ink stays wet and will spread where you put it. If you lift the brayer up, it starts to dry, and that's it. So here we go. And that's pretty darn good for one inking. Don't worry about this other end. I'm going to get to that. But I want to make it a little bit darker, so I'm going to ink again and go over the same section. Here I go. See the intensity of those colors? Isn't that pretty? And that should do it for now. So now, to get the other side, I'm going to flip it around so that this color, which was at this end of my brayer, is now right there. I'm going to just make another layer of that color, or I could even go down a little further like this and make that section bigger. But I want some more of the orange and yellow. So I'm going to go back over this color with the same section on my brayer. And again, keep it moving and re-ink and do it again. And yes, that does make that little section of the spectrum a bit darker than the rest, but it'll be okay. Okay, now you might notice that when you go off the edge of the paper and then come back, it leaves a little mark on the brayer, and that will transfer as a line onto your paper, and that's really hard to get rid of. One way to do that is to try not to go all the way off the edge after you've gotten it inked fairly well. Now look what I just did. I made a mess. I rolled that in the wrong spot while I wasn't thinking. Oh well, it's gonna be okay. So let's put the lid back on here, and then I will later clean my brayer before I forget. Just a wet washcloth would work wonders. So this is my panel now, and it does dry fairly quickly on the glossy paper. Now I've had people ask, can you do this on regular Whisper White cardstock? And the answer is not if you want this smooth effect. You get a much different effect if it's on regular paper. And if you want to see what that looks like, you can try that on your own at home. It's not something that I care for. So now I'm ready to place my blue die cut panel over the top of this. And isn't that just gorgeous with those colors showing through? And then used on this card. And that's how I did it. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you'll check back often to see what I'm doing down the road. Bye.